I discovered what my brother was doing while I slept. I never imagined. I woke up suffocating. My heart was pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape from my chest. The room was plunged into darkness, but something had brutally ripped me from sleep. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I fumbled across the nightstand, searching for the light switch. The light exploded in the room, blinding me for a few seconds. When my vision adjusted, what I saw made my blood freeze. My left hand. There was something carved into it. Not drawn, not painted. Carved. A symbol I had never seen before, as if it had been burned into my skin during the early morning hours. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Low, almost imperceptible, coming from somewhere in the house. My blood froze in my veins. It wasn't my imagination. Someone was whispering words I couldn't understand, in a language that sounded ancient, sinister. With shaky legs, I got up from bed. Each step toward the door seemed to echo like thunder in the deadly silence of the night. The hallway stretched before me like an endless tunnel. The whispering continued, clearer now, coming from the room next door. From my brother's room. I pressed my ear against the slightly open door, and what I saw made me question my own sanity. Tiago was standing in the center of the room, completely motionless, wearing a dark robe that covered his face. His hands moved in precise gestures, tracing symbols in the air. The same symbols that were now burning on my skin. And the most terrifying part? His eyes were completely white, as if he was no longer himself. In that moment, I realized that everything I thought I knew about my brother was a lie. But let me go back to the beginning. My name is Clara and I'm 23 years old. Tiago is my younger brother, only 2 years between us. We've always been close, especially after our parents died in a car accident 5 years ago. Since then, it's just the two of us in this old house we inherited from our grandmother. The house is on a quiet street, one of those where everyone knows each other. It has 3 bedrooms, a cozy kitchen, and a basement we always avoided. Tiago said the place had a strange smell, like something had died down there long ago. I agreed. That basement always gave me the creeps. During the day, Tiago was completely normal. He worked at a computer store downtown, liked playing video games and watching horror movies with me. We laughed together, walked together, split the bills and household responsibilities like any pair of siblings making it alone in the world. But at night, he transformed. At first, I thought they were just nightmares. Tiago had always been a heavy sleeper, but for the past few months, I started hearing strange noises coming from his room during the early morning hours. Dragging footsteps, low whispers, sometimes even the sound of furniture being moved. One night, about 3 months ago, I woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen. Passing through the hallway, I noticed his bedroom door was slightly open and a dim light was flickering inside. I thought he had left the TV on, but when I approached to check, what I saw left me confused. Tiago was sitting on the edge of the bed, completely motionless, staring fixedly at the wall. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. I called his name twice, but he didn't respond. I decided not to bother him. Maybe it was sleepwalking, I thought. But the episodes became more frequent and stranger. I started finding objects out of place in the morning. Kitchen knives on the living room windowsill. Lit candles in the bathroom. Once, I found coarse salt scattered in perfect circles across the kitchen floor. When I asked Tiago about it, he seemed genuinely confused, as if he had no idea what I was talking about. Maybe it's stress, he'd say, running his hand through his disheveled brown hair. You've been working a lot, Clara. Maybe you're seeing things. For a while, I believed him. My work as a freelance graphic designer had really picked up, and I was staying up all night finishing projects. It was possible my mind was playing tricks on me. But then the symbols started appearing. First, it was a strange drawing scribbled in the margin of a book that was on the living room table. Then, I found the same symbol scratched with a fingernail into the bathroom doorwood. They were intricate drawings, full of curved lines that intertwined, forming patterns that seemed familiar, even though I had never seen them before. And every morning, Tiago woke up as if nothing had happened. He drank his coffee, kissed my forehead, and left for work with that sweet smile I'd always known. The same smile I'd known since childhood. How could I imagine that my own brother was hiding something so dark? The situation started getting really disturbing about a month ago. The symbols no longer appeared just occasionally. They showed up every night. On the refrigerator, on fogged windows, even in the litter box of the cat we had recently adopted. And always the same intricate patterns, as if following a specific sequence. That's when I decided I needed to watch Tiago more closely. I started paying attention to details that had previously gone unnoticed. The way he got restless after dinner, constantly fidgeting with his hands. How his eyes took on a vacant expression when the clock struck midnight. And especially, how he always found an excuse for me to go to bed early. "You look tired, Clara," he'd say, with that genuine concern in his voice. "Why don't you go rest? I'll take care of the dishes." One night, I pretended I had gone to sleep, but stayed spying through the keyhole. What I saw made me tremble. Tiago waited exactly 15 minutes after I turned off my bedroom light. Then, as if obeying an invisible signal, he got up from the couch where he was watching TV and walked to the kitchen. But he didn't go get water or a snack. He opened the cabinet where we kept cleaning supplies and took out a small box I had never seen before. Inside it were black candles, a handful of dark stones, and something that appeared to be white chalk. My heart raced when I realized he was heading for the basement. The basement we always avoided. The basement that supposedly had a strange smell and dampness. The basement where, apparently, my brother spent his early morning hours doing things I couldn't even imagine. I tried to follow him, but the old floorboards creaked under my feet. Afraid of being discovered, I went back to my room and spent the rest of the night awake, staring at the ceiling and trying to understand what was happening. The next morning, Tiago appeared in the kitchen as always. Messy hair, wrinkled pajamas, that sleepy smile I knew so well. But there was something different. His nails were dirty with a dark substance, and he had small scratches on his arms that definitely weren't there the day before. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, preparing his coffee as if it were just another ordinary morning. "Yes," I lied, watching him carefully. "And you?" "As always." He shrugged, but avoided my gaze. "I dreamed about Grandma last night. She was in the garden, planting those yellow flowers she loved so much. Our grandmother had died 10 years ago. Tiago never dreamed about her. And he definitely never mentioned dreams so specifically. Something was very, very wrong. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the strange episodes started right after we moved into this house. Our grandmother's house. The house with the basement we always avoided. The house that I now suspected held secrets much darker than simple dampness or unpleasant smell. I decided I needed proof. I couldn't live anymore with suspicions and crazy theories in my head. If Tiago was really hiding something, I needed to know what. And if I was going insane, at least I'd be certain of that too. I bought a small discreet security camera online. When it arrived, I waited for Tiago to leave for work and installed the equipment in the hallway, positioned so it could capture both my bedroom door and his, plus the basement entrance. That first night with the camera was one of the longest of my life. I lay in bed, pretending to sleep, but with all my senses on maximum alert. I heard Tiago moving around the house, the familiar sound of his footsteps in the hallway, and then silence. The next morning, I rushed to check the recordings. My heart sank when I discovered the camera had stopped working exactly at midnight. The screen showed only static, as if something had interfered with the signal. I tried again the next night. Same thing. The camera worked perfectly until midnight, then simply died. It was as if something, or someone, knew exactly where it was and turned it off on purpose. Frustrated, I decided to confront Tiago directly. "I need to ask you something," I said during dinner, trying to keep my voice casual. "Have you been sleeping badly lately? Because I've been hearing noises at night." He stopped chewing and looked at me with a strange expression, part confusion, part something that seemed almost panic. "What kind of noises?" he asked slowly. "Footsteps, voices, things being dragged." I watched his reaction carefully. Sometimes it seems like you're awake, walking around the house. Tiago lowered his eyes to his plate and remained silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, deeper, more distant. I don't remember any of that, Clara. Maybe I'm having sleepwalking episodes. Since we moved here, I've been having very vivid dreams. Strange dreams. What kind of dreams? He hesitated, as if deciding how much to reveal. Dreams about Grandma. She shows me things. Places in the house I've never seen before. And sometimes, when I wake up, I have the feeling they weren't just dreams. My blood ran cold. What places? The basement, he whispered, still avoiding my gaze. In the dreams, the basement is completely different. Bigger, with corridors leading to other rooms. And there are things down there, Clara. Old things. That night, I decided I couldn't pretend normalcy anymore. Tiago's dreams were too vivid to be just dreams. And if he really was going to the basement during his sleepwalking episodes, I needed to know what he was doing there. I waited until I was sure he was sleeping deeply, then got up from bed and walked silently to the basement door. My hand trembled when I touched the doorknob. For years, that door had remained locked, but when I tried to turn it, it opened easily. The smell that rose from the basement made me gag. It wasn't dampness or mold as we had always thought. It was something much worse. A sweet, nauseating smell, like rotting flowers mixed with wet earth. And there was another odor underneath, something that made my stomach turn. I turned on my phone's flashlight and started descending the wooden steps. Each step produced a creak that seemed to echo throughout the house. I prayed that Tiago wouldn't wake up. What I found in the basement changed everything. It wasn't just a damp and dusty room. The walls were covered with the same symbols I had found around the house. But here they were larger, more elaborate, carved directly into the stone. Black candles were scattered everywhere, some still with soft wax, evidence of recent use. In the center of the basement was something that made my blood freeze. A perfect circle drawn on the floor with that white chalk I saw Tiago take. Inside the circle were objects I couldn't immediately identify. Dark stones, small bones, and something that appeared to be human hair tied with red thread. But what terrified me most was finding, carefully arranged around the circle, personal objects of mine. A hairbrush I thought I had lost, a photo of me from graduation, even a necklace our mother had given me years ago. Suddenly, I heard footsteps upstairs. Tiago had woken up. I quickly turned off the flashlight and climbed the stairs as silently as possible. But when I reached the top, he was already standing in the middle of the living room, looking directly at me. His eyes had that vacant expression I had seen that first strange night. "You shouldn't have gone down there, Clara," he said, and his voice sounded completely different, deeper, with an echo that didn't make sense. Now it's too late. Before I could respond or run, I felt a sudden dizziness. The world began spinning around me, and the last thing I remember is seeing Tiago approach, with his hands extended toward me, whispering words in a language I didn't recognize. When I woke up, I was back in my bed, with the symbol carved into my hand and that metallic taste in my mouth, as if everything had been a terrible dream. But I knew it wasn't a dream, and I knew that whatever thing had taken control of my brother was now after me too. I spent the next day watching Tiago like a hawk watches its prey. Every gesture, every word, every change in his expression. He seemed normal during the day. He made breakfast, talked about work, even laughed at a silly joke I made. But there was something in his eyes, a depth that didn't exist before, as if he was looking through me instead of at me. At night, I pretended I was going to bed earlier, complaining of a headache. Tiago offered to make tea, with that genuine concern he always showed when I wasn't feeling well. For a moment, I almost believed I had imagined everything. Almost. But when the clock struck midnight, I heard the familiar footsteps in the hallway. This time, I was prepared. Dressed in dark clothes, with socks on my feet to muffle any noise, I left my room and followed him at a distance. My heart was beating so hard, I was sure he could hear it. But Tiago walked as if in a trance, completely oblivious to the world around him. He went down to the basement carrying a bag I hadn't noticed before. I waited a few minutes, mentally counting to 100, before approaching the slightly open door. The dim light of candles flickered below, creating dancing shadows on the walls. I descended the steps with extreme care, pausing at every creak of the old wood. The nauseating smell was stronger than the night before, almost unbearable. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, what I saw made me cover my mouth with my hands to contain a scream. Tiago was kneeling in the center of the circle, but he wasn't alone. There was a shadowy figure behind him, not exactly solid, but definitely present. It was as if darkness itself had taken shape and was whispering in his ears. And the most terrifying part, he was holding a small, sharp knife, making precise cuts on his own arm, while speaking words in a language that sounded ancient and terrible. Blood dripped onto the floor, feeding the symbols carved into the stone. That's when I realized the horrible truth. My brother wasn't sleepwalking. He was being possessed. And now, finally, I knew by whom. The shadowy figure turned in my direction, as if it had sensed my presence. It had no defined face, but I felt its eyes piercing me through the darkness. A supernatural cold took over the basement, and the candles began to flicker violently. Tiago stopped cutting his own arm and slowly turned his head back. When our eyes met, I saw there was nothing of my brother in that gaze. His eyes were completely black, like two empty holes in his face. "Clara," he said, but it wasn't his voice. It was a hoarse, ancient voice that seemed to come from several people speaking at once. "Finally, you came to join us." I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. It was as if invisible roots had sprouted from the floor and wrapped around my ankles. The shadowy figure began floating in my direction, and the air around me became so dense I could barely breathe. "You don't understand, do you?" The voice continued, coming from Tiago's mouth. "Your grandmother didn't die of natural causes. She summoned me, brought me to this dimension. But the ritual was left incomplete when she passed away. I needed family blood to finish what she started." Memories began fitting together like pieces of a macabre puzzle. Our grandmother, always strange, always whispering things we didn't understand. The way she died, alone in this house, found days later under circumstances that were never fully explained. And especially, the peculiar will that left the house specifically to both of us. "Tiago has served well," the voice continued, and my brother raised his cut arm, showing symbols that had been carved into his own flesh. "But one servant isn't enough. I need a stronger anchor in this world. I need you." That's when the shadowy figure materialized completely. It was our grandmother, but distorted, with eyes that glowed like burning coal, and a smile that revealed rotten teeth. Her hair floated as if she were underwater, and her skin was covered with the same symbols I had seen around the house. "Dear granddaughter," she whispered in a voice that was both sweet and terrifying, "come hug your grandma." I finally managed to move, but not to hug her. I ran toward the stairs, but the entity that had been my grandmother was faster. She floated through the air and blocked my path, extending arms that seemed to stretch beyond natural limits. "There's no escape," she laughed, and the sound echoed through the walls like the scream of 1,000 voices. "The ritual has already begun. The symbol on your hand is just the beginning." I looked at my palm and saw that the symbol was pulsing, glowing with a reddish light that seemed to come from inside my own skin. The pain was excruciating, like something was burning through my bones. Tiago, or the thing controlling Tiago, approached with the knife still in his hand. But when he got close to me, for a fraction of a second, I saw something familiar in his eyes. A spark of recognition, of internal struggle. "Clara," he whispered in his own voice, fighting against the possession. The book. In Grandma's closet. Page 137. The entity realized that Tiago was fighting against its control and roared with rage. The basement walls began to shake. Objects fell from shelves, and the candles all went out at the same time, plunging us into total darkness. In complete darkness, I heard my grandmother's voice whispering, "It's too late, dear. The ritual is complete." and then I felt something ice cold touch my forehead. When the candles lit up again, I was alone in the basement. Tiago had disappeared, along with our grandmother's shadowy figure. But I knew I had little time. The symbol on my hand continued pulsing, stronger now, and I felt something moving under my skin. I ran upstairs, straight to our grandmother's room, which we had locked since we moved here. The door gave way easily. I suspected the locks no longer worked for me. The old closet creaked when I opened it. Among dusty clothes and yellowed photographs, I found the book, an ancient grimoire, with a black leather cover and pages that seemed made of parchment. On page 137, as Tiago had said, was the complete description of the ritual, and more importantly, instructions on how to reverse it. What I discovered made me cry. Our grandmother hadn't summoned the entity by accident. She did it deliberately, knowing she would need us to complete the ritual. Everything had been planned. Our inheritance of the house, our parents' death that forced us to live here, even the exact time it would take for the entity to gain enough strength. But there was a flaw in the plan. The ritual only worked if both descendants accepted voluntarily. Tiago had been deceived, manipulated through dreams and gradual possession. But I still had a choice. I followed the book's instructions, destroying every symbol carved in the basement, burning the black candles, scattering salt in broken circles. When I finished, I heard a terrible scream coming from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Tiago appeared on the stairs, himself again, confused and scared. "Clara? What? Where are we?" I looked at my hand. The symbol was still there, weaker now, but it hadn't completely disappeared. Some rituals, I discovered, leave permanent scars. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear our grandmother whispering my name. That was my story. A story that completely changed how I see my family, my house, and especially the things we think we know about the people closest to us. Tiago is fine now. He doesn't remember anything that happened during the months he was being controlled. The doctors say it was a post-traumatic stress episode related to the loss of our parents, combined with severe sleepwalking. I let them believe that. But I know the truth, and now you know it too. The symbol on my hand never completely disappeared. Sometimes on new moon nights, it still pulses slightly, reminding me that some doors, once opened, never close completely. We moved out of that house. We sold it to a young family, and sometimes I wonder if I should have warned them about the basement. But who would believe a story like this? And you? Do you believe me? If you like this story, if it made you question what you really know about your own families, leave a like on the video. And most importantly, tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced something unexplainable at home? Have you ever suspected that someone close was hiding a dark secret? I want to read each of your experiences, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who went through something like this. Subscribe to the channel for more real horror stories, stories that will make you look at your own homes in a completely different way. And hit the notification bell, because you won't want to miss the next account. Until next time, if you can sleep peacefully after this story, good night.